Welcome everybody to our live series. This is the second season of me interviewing other practice owners and other therapists who dove into the world of entrepreneurship. And so if you're here live with us, if you want to comment hi, or at least just give us a thumbs up that you can hear me okay, always good. And so far we've talked to a bunch of different practice owners across the country and just learned so much about their stories. And I'm really excited tonight to bring on one of my friends from the East Coast. Bill and I worked together for, what do you think, like 10 years probably? I think that's accurate. Yeah. We worked together so much. We had a blast, and he's still doing really amazing things. So I'm really excited to have you here, Bill. Yeah, it was good to see you.
You too. It's a pleasure to join you, and it's a pleasure to share the experience so others can kind of grow and learn and, go forth.
Yeah, and get kind of a preview of what they might be in for, and the pros and cons, the trade-off.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and still, like why, well, we'll get into this, I'm sure, but I was just talking to another practice owner before we got on about, there's just like a different kind of stress when you own your own business, but also like a freedom like nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely.
And being able to make your own choices about where you're going to be when, and taking vacation is definitely things that are great. So, okay, so let's jump into all of this stuff. I know that Bill has a ton of really good, info and stories to share, but for people here who might not know you, Bill, if you could tell us a little bit about you and your background and where you're at now with your practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. So I run Movement First Health and Wellness currently, and I have it's myself and a dietitian on our staff, and we're actually bringing on a business manager within the next month. Kind of started, my roots were from in business wise. I started as a traveling therapist, concierge, going to people's homes, which was awesome in its own sense, being able to meet people, meet their pets, meet their family in that order. But eventually, wanted to kind of have a space for those who didn't necessarily feel comfortable with me coming, or with people who, made the schedule kind of a little neater to have people come see me versus me going to see them. And so I started different places, and was able to kind of rent space from a CrossFit gym, was able to rent space from a yoga studio, from a personal fitness gym, and now I'm here kind of in a brand new spot that Morgan doesn't even know about, but I'm renting space from another physical therapist to.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's been a crazy year. But it's all, you just got to take it in stride. Before then, I was a physical therapist. I worked for a kind of a chain place that I would see many people didn't have much mentorship, didn't have much help in terms of figuring out what I was doing and how to do it properly. Didn't feel like everything was kind of going or expected in an ethical manner. So I got out of that, went to a different and better place. There, I relearned my love for helping people and kind of learning about the body and enhancing the way that I can help through therapy and through different modalities and techniques. And then, but soon realized that the model that they had wasn't quite holding up with the reimbursement rates in the area. So ultimately decided that, when they kind of merged actually with the previous place that I was out of there, went and did a part-time somewhere as I started to grow my business part-time at night and on weekends. And then ended up going full-time in the middle of the pandemic in October of 2020, which is, I believe, when we started, was when I went full time. And it was so helpful. And I don't know if I would have been able to grow the way I grew without some of your guidance. And so since then, continuing to grow, as I mentioned, the dietitian, and going forward, I'm hoping to even expand even more into wellness, bringing on mental health, bringing on, maybe other movement providers, and even I would love to bring on, some medicine, whether it be functional medicine, some sort of medical side of the health world, just to kind of have that everything in-house and together. So it's easy, and we can all work as a team to help people.
That's so cool. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I know, like, I think your story, like, really, I guess, like, sort of exemplifies, like, a lot of the things that all of us kind of go through. And I know when I was first, like, out of school, doing my first jobs and starting my business, like, sometimes I can feel really, like, lonely and, like, almost like I'm the only person who's going through this, and that's just not true. Like, you know, a lot of us definitely have similar stories of kind of like sort of like bouncing around a little bit because like you realize something is just like not right.
Right.
And, you know, I think the courage that it takes is, you know, not super common, I would say, to be able to say, you know what, I have to really like go after what like my dreams are and the way that I think people should be treated. And I know like this, I want to know more about this. So I hope you don't mind me asking here on our live stream podcast YouTube video. But, yeah. But I know like earlier, I think, when we were kind of talking about like goals and like where you see your practice going in the future, like I know that this like comprehensive wellness space is really important to you, and like you wanted to be able to bring on like all different aspects of different providers to, you know, essentially be able to say to somebody like, hey, like come into this facility and you can just door to door to door and go see everybody that you need to see. And that was kind of like a dream that you had and like an ultimate goal, and it sounds like you're really like on the pathway to that. So I'm
Yeah.
just curious if you can tell us a little bit more about all that and how
Yeah,
it's working
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, kind of where it came from was that the way I help people is I try to take a whole body approach, and I try to, and I know a lot of the listeners probably do as well. You try, and that's why you may be thinking about going into your own practice, is because you want to spend the time and you want to do what's right and all the things that are necessary to kind of treat the entire individual versus just kind of shuffling through and doing the bare minimum. So within exploring that, within getting that extra time, I recognize, you know, there are people who have dietary problems that contribute to symptoms. They have psychological problems that contribute to not only their problems, but it impacts their ability to do what needs to be done and to care for themselves enough that they will actually kind of put in the work sometimes. So it's not everyone, but the people who do have it, they need that extra support. And obviously, I'm not a mental health specialist, but I can see when somebody has trouble and needs something like that. The challenge that I've witnessed is it's not always easy to get people to go and seek that type of help, even dietitian or mental health, because like us, even when someone's coming to a space or told to go do something or recommended to go do something, there's so many uncertainties within that. And so it's like, okay, I just got comfortable enough to invest in my physical health here, and now this guy's telling me I need to go talk to a shrink. Like, what? But the idea was that if we could have it where, you know, and I haven't ironed it all out, but if we could have it where it is a package deal, or it's not necessarily, you know, you're going to see the physical therapist and then, you're going to have a different package to see a mental health specialist, but you essentially invest in your own wellness, and then you have access to all of these providers. So if your base provider is a psychologist, and they're telling them about some sort of physical issue or some sort of, you know, that they haven't exercised, then that mental health specialist can refer them to either a trainer or a physical therapist or chiropractor within the practice that can take care of some of those issues, which will then potentially improve their mental health, and vice versa. Someone who has, you know, physical issues and is struggling with habit forming or struggling with some sort of grieving or depression that is impacting their progress and their ability to continue on their journey, then it's imperative to be able to say, hey, you know, I really think this is important. Instead of seeing me this week, I'd really like you to see so-and-so, so that you can work through some of these things, get some strategies, get some skills so that you can work on them. And then we can kind of follow up about it and see what else you need going forward, and just kind of come at it from a team approach and an ease of kind of entry for all the different clinicians and all that stuff. So that's kind of where I see it going. There are some practices in area that have similar, whether it be chiropractor, nutritionist, functional medicine, or acupuncture and some of that stuff. So it can be done. It's just a matter of making sure it's modeled so that it can provide the most benefit for the people who are using it, and be able to be an environment for the providers that they feel like they have the time, the ability to kind of make sure that they take care of people and give them what is best without an ego of thinking, okay, I can do this without any additional help.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such like a beautiful thing. Imagine healthcare being easy and about the patient and like
Right.
and I think that's so cool. And one of my other clients, they were just telling me about how I think they're in kind of like a similar situation where they're practicing out of right now. Like they do mobile, but also rent space in a place that sounds similar to what you are putting together, and it's also just like it's such a good environment for the clinicians too, to be able to really like work together and get to know each other, rather than again like feeling like you're on your own. So I love that. I think that's so cool. And like for me, I know like as a patient, I think we probably talked about this like way back when, but like one of the things that I try to the practice owners that I work with is to make things like as easy as possible for your patients or like prospects and everything, because like the more barriers to entry that you put there, like like you really will get people who are like very serious about it, but it also could potentially like prevent somebody from taking the steps that they need. For example, if I have to make my own dentist appointment, that for sure is not happening for another 4 weeks. Just baseline, it'll be on my to-do list for the next month. But like what I'm like picturing with your description is like if that they need to go see the dietitian and the dietitian is literally like right across the hall from you, then it's kind of hard to not
As basically as you're checking out, it's like, oh, Dr. Bill said he wanted me to schedule with Dr. Susan next instead of him, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll get you set up and in contact with them. Boom.
Yeah.
That easy as that. Like no extra talk about intake forms, no extra talk about new businesses, no talk about trying to figure out how we can talk to each other. Just none of all that red tape around it. And I know that's kind of what's a beautiful thing about some of the bigger entities, as frustrating as it can be, that people will stay within that. But what it is it's so easy to be able to just go on a my chart and see, so such and such was thinking this when they sent you to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess kind of like going off of that and pivoting, speaking about like challenges and struggles with health, one of the main themes that Bill and I have talked about, like both in our work together and then also just as like friends as well, is mental health as a business owner. And so like, I know like Bill, that was something that, you wanted to touch on tonight. So if you don't mind maybe sharing a little bit more about like your story with that and kind of what you've learned over the past couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, it's something that, when you're getting into this world and seeing all the people kind of joining this world and promoting their success and promoting that they can help you through, help you grow your business and all that stuff. What you don't see is the everyday grind. You don't see the struggle, the second guessing, the questioning if things are right. Now, not everybody has that. But it's also good to know that a lot of people do have that. And it's important to know that can be definitely normal for sure. And just kind of being able to see, okay, what are all these thoughts and beliefs that I have, and are they true, and or do I have to kind of rethink them and kind of reframe them in order to not feel stuck? So yeah, within my own journey, during the time that we worked, we actually had to take a break because I was having a mental breakdown. I was so anxious and so frustrated that I was so frustrated that I wasn't healthy, and it ended up being one of the best months I ever had after kind of taking a break because of probably because of all the work that I'd put into it. But, when I was able to relax and sit back and do the work, I was able to enjoy it and be able to kind of take care of myself and enjoy the process of working with people a little bit more versus worrying so much about, the bottom line and getting things done and so much work to do. Within that process, I found out that I have ADHD, and that was something that, I had suspicions. My wife's an occupational therapist, and she, diagnosed me with it. Looking back in the past, there were some signs from, whether it be notes from teachers, whether it be, forget how forgetful I was with certain things. There were definitely signs of lacking that focus, the memory loss, the executive function issues. And so learning that I had ADHD was a huge enlightenment. And I think this has actually even grown even more since I've been working with Morgan, in a sense that once I've realized kind of what I was dealing with, I was able to learn, okay, these are the things that I've dealt with, and this is normal with this, and these are the things that I have to do to overcome it. But without that diagnosis, my mind was like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? Everybody's just doing the work fine. Why can't I should be doing this, should be doing that. A lot of shoulda, woulda, coulda stuff, as opposed to kind of accepting how it was and navigating around it. And that led to again, as I mentioned, increased anxiety. It led to depression, and it led to just me being in a really hard place, needing help from mental health specialists, medication, to make sure that I am able to kind of sustain a healthy lifestyle, even with the stresses of work, even with the stresses of early parenthood, because it is very, very stressful. As you mentioned, it's a different kind of stress. When it comes to doing your notes at work, you're stressed about doing all your notes and seeing all your clients. But when it's a business, you're stressed because you kind of have the whole thing on top of your shoulders. And another thing that I found out, and this doesn't make any sense because I love talking to people and I love engaging with people. But one of the other things that I discovered with help was that I have social anxiety. So that anxiety, that imposter syndrome, that feeling like you're bothering someone, you're feeling like what you're doing isn't good enough, or all those types of things are a form of social anxiety. And what that does is that basically stops you from doing all the things that you need to do, believe you can do. But then as soon as you start letting yourself think about something from a vantage point of how others will respond to you, then you kind of shut down because of that social anxiety. And so it's, again, really learning the skills and strategies with help to change your viewpoint, boost your self-esteem, be able to learn kind of different ways to navigate it, different ways to think about it. And so it's really important to kind of, what I want to say with this is, like, it's really important to listen to your body, listen to your stress, and then don't be afraid to go get help, because it may just be the thing that helps you blossom and grow more than you could ever have expected to grow, which I feel like it's helping me to do now. It's giving me the confidence to kind of go through and do things in a bigger way, because I know my limitations and I know the things that I need help with, and then I can go out and get it. The other thing I wanted to say is that it's really important to take a look at, why do you want to start a business? So that's like a completely separate piece to it. Like, there's the stress of having a business, but then there's the stresses of, why do you want the business? Is it because you just want something comfortable for yourself? Is it because you don't want a boss? Is it because you want to grow something? Is it because you want your name to be known for something? Is it because you want to be proud about something? And you have to kind of look and say, like, is this story, or is this actually going to provide me with that pride? Or do I just need to start with that pride now and enjoy every single moment? And then you have to think, okay, if I'm enjoying every single moment, what does life look like at its best? Like, what helps me get to my why? So again, kind of knowing why you're doing it, why you get up in the morning and making sure that that aligns with starting a business. Because if you look at it and say, you know, I want to start a business because I think you know, to show these people that, you know, that's, I can do it, then that's kind of the wrong thing to do. If you're saying I want to go into business because that environment is where I thrive, or that type of work is meaningful to me, and that type of community is meaningful to me, then you're going towards the right direction, I would say.
I would agree with that. You know, like your business, it has to be like for you. You know, like a lot of people's goals also like incorporate, you know, their loved ones or their family. And I would still consider that, you know, you in a sense, like it has to be like internal, I guess, like for an internal reason,
Mhm.
rather than, you know, like you said, like I'll show them, you know, or whatever else, because it has to just like create such a high sense of drive that, you know, like you're able to endure over time, over days and weeks and months, through the ups and downs. Because if you don't have that and like have that kind of power behind it, it's probably not going to go very far, you know, or like it won't be very sustainable.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I feel like it sounds like to me that, you know, when we were together talking about a lot of like mental health stuff, it was very like in the moment and kind of like, how can I make my day to day like more comfortable and less 100% anxiety? And since then, it sounds like you have really taken like a lot of time to reflect on how else like that day to day maybe like influenced everything else that was going on, you know, with you personally and with your business.
Absolutely. And you know, with the ADD, like looking back again, it's clear like you were helping me with a lot of the structural stuff within my business to kind of get it ordered, to kind of get everything kind of in the fold, where I don't have that ability with the ADD. And so it's like you were essentially helping me with my executive function, and that's where you're such a massive help for me. I know that's not necessarily kind of how you help everyone, but that ability to kind of help me understand some of these executive functions of planning and organizing and doing all these types of different things, you know, I didn't have that, and still continue to struggle with it. So it's, like I said, something I'm going to be outsourcing. And then you mentioned, like, you know, outside of the business, like you also don't realize when you're a one-man show how much your personal life also impacts your business, right? You need, if you're having stress at home, it can create challenges in the business, because if you're just always stressed out and you never give yourself self time to recover, then you're just going to be burnt out. And then the only time that you're going to slow down is probably going to be on your own time, which is business time. So that impacts everything as well, which kind of stresses everything out. So
yeah, and it's just a whole vicious cycle. And
take care of yourself.
Yeah, and I just like, it always just reminds me of my own mental breakdowns, which I feel like when I first started out, probably the first like 6 months or so, I would have a mental breakdown probably at least once a week, you know, it being like, what am I doing? And, you know, over time, it's gone from like weekly to monthly to quarterly, and moving more into like semi-annually. So, you know, I think like with that said, being patient with yourself is also really important. You know, and I think that was something that you were kind of like mentioning with, you know, I should be able to do this. I should be doing like what all these other people are doing. And, you know, like on just like one thing, you should never should anything.
Right. And that's one of the cognitive distortions that I was having, was a lot of shoulda, coulda, woulda, for sure. So it definitely, you're also saying, so I forget, but I didn't mean to interrupt. Continue your thoughts. Sorry.
That's okay. Sometimes it's just like I have to interrupt. I have to say this thing right now because I will forget in about 25 seconds. So.
I'm the same way,
But I think that that's something that it really took like a long time for me to like break out of, you know, like you see all these entrepreneurs online, especially now, doing all these things and being like very go, 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 go. And of course, like that's probably not the reality with a lot of people, but because it's what we see online, then you're like, oh, like I should be able to be working like 12 hours a day, 6 days a week on my business. And, if you're not doing that, like you're not good enough. And you just kind of like start to come up with your own conclusions in a way about like what it takes to be successful. When in reality, every single business and business owner has a completely unique situation. And while a lot of the paths to get from here to there have similar elements, like all of the external and internal factors that each business owner has is going to create like their own like individualized way to where they want to go. And I think like if that's something that I had known earlier on, like with mental health wise, probably would have helped, to say like, just because this person's doing that, like doesn't mean I have to, and I have to think about, what's going to be best for me ultimately. Then like one other thing I just wanted to mention again, because so I don't forget, is like I always talk about too with people, when it comes to like pricing your services, like if you're going to charge $200 a session, then you better be filled with the integrity of also being willing to pay $200 for a session to another provider, because like if you aren't willing to like pay for your own like healthcare, then this is just like with cash practice. But if you won't pay for your own healthcare, like why should somebody pay you cash? Like it doesn't line up. And so like coming back to like the mental health thing, if you're expecting people to invest in their health with therapy and also like invest their time and energy into it, but you aren't willing to get the help that you need, then I feel like that's also kind of like a conflict a little bit.
Right. For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. You kind of got to walk the walk. Yeah. Walk the walk, talk the talk. And so that was actually something, you said a couple things that I'd love to touch on.
Yeah.
I'll kind of go backwards. You mentioned, your rates. Not only thinking that you would do it yourself, but I guess looking at what you charge and what the value you give with that charge, and then looking, okay, if I was getting this value, would I pay for it? Because sometimes part of the reason that a lot of us are doing, or at least the reason I'm doing it, is because I haven't ever received the type of care that I try to give. And so it's almost like, would I pay the $250 for what I've gotten, or for physical therapy, or for, this? No. But I would pay the $250 if someone was going to invest in me and communicate with me the way that I try to do with my clients.
Yeah.
And kind of be on my team and be like super invested. So like when you're looking at your rates, it's like, okay, yeah, I could charge a lot, but what is the value that I'm giving with that? And how can I make sure that people understand that, if you're going to charge a ton, then you're going to be able to give a ton of attention and energy to people. If you're not going to charge as much, then you're not going to give them as much. So it's just, understanding kind of the value spectrum when it comes to your rates, because again, yeah, you could charge 100 or 150, but then you only give them a certain part of your time versus charging much more, which you give them more energy, more time, more focus. But what that comes down to is knowing your self-worth, knowing what you are worth, your knowledge is worth, your care and your time are worth, and believing that you are worth it. When it comes to that investment. So I think that that's kind of important to know when people are thinking about their price. It's not just, logistics, it's also your value, and then the value to other people that you're providing.
And like the results long term too,
Sure,
because like we might be thinking, like step one is just establish the pricing,
right.
And then step two, it's like, okay, well, I'm charging $250. I need to give at least $250 worth of value at that time. But, it's not just that hour. It's also the results that you're giving them into the future. and all the things you're doing, between sessions and all of that as well. And
I'd
so
like to challenge you on that a little bit. Sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
go for
No,
it.
the reason being, I just actually read a pretty transformative book. It's a book that has really, really transformed the way I'm thinking. It's called and I highly recommend this to any new entrepreneur. I think it would be one of the top 5 books I would recommend. It's called The Courage to Be Disliked. And the reason I want to challenge you is because just the way you phrased it, you said, you want to make sure that you are giving a $200, $250 value, and you want to make sure that all the things that you're doing, and I know I kind of said it too, so I'm still working on it, but I'm challenging us. So I'm challenging us with I learned. I'm challenging us with this new thing I learned, because essentially, if you are, this is also through conversations with other people, it's like, if you are doing your best and you are doing what you believe is your job, your task to help guide, use your knowledge, then it shouldn't matter what the other person, how they respond to it, because you're doing your best, and that's what you are worth.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of the way they talk about tasks and separation of tasks, and how my task is do something, is to provide care. Their task is to receive the care, their task is to do their programming, whatever's instructed of them. Their task is to experience and feel the way they feel. And those two things shouldn't cross. I shouldn't be trying to change the way they feel. I should just be doing the thing that I've promised to do. And
like your responsibility almost, and correct me if I'm wrong, but your responsibility in the relationship is like only for yourself. Like, I feel like a lot of times we, say like, okay, like, I have to do all these things, blah, 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 be the professional. And it's my responsibility for, like you just said, how the other person feels, whether they do their homework, whether they get the results, and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, you can only truly like be responsible for your own actions, thoughts, feelings, etc.
Yep. Yeah. And that's kind of what I was talking about with, some of the changes with the social anxiety, having that mindset when it comes to creating content. If you're driven to educate people, that's your task, that's your thing. Do it. And that's why it's called the courage to be disliked, because it's like, do what is you, do what you want to do what you are passionate and love doing, because that's the way that you're going to be free. Have the courage to know that maybe thousands of people will dislike you, but also understand that there are probably going to be thousands of people that do like you. But it's the courage to do it regardless. And that's something that I've actually noticed with a lot of like coaches that are preaching. They're like, do it, people won't care, or they will care. Like, don't worry because people don't care. But it's like, no, just do it because that's what you love doing. Do it because you're really passionate about it. And it doesn't matter what anybody else says. And it's kind of a hard thing to remember when you've gone through all that stuff. And then especially kind of with you're talking about social media and how you see other people doing things, and you feel like you're in competition, but in reality, if your goal is to help people, if your goal is to provide, help so many people avoid surgery or help so many people have fulfilled lives, then you guys are all on the same team, right? And yes, maybe monetarily feel some competition, but really everybody's on the same team, and you guys are working for the same thing. And then with Instagram and Facebook and everything, as you mentioned, like, you see all the positives, and what you don't see is all the blood, sweat, and tears, and the frustration, and the
lack of sleep.
Yeah, the lack of sleep. And I have people come up to me and they're like, oh, it looks like your practice is doing great. I'm like, does it? Good. Glad. Like, I'm glad it looks like it's doing great. Good thing. Like, awesome. I know how it's going. I'm content and happy. Keep building it. But I'm glad it looks good to other people. So I also know the moments where I'm like, crud, everything's falling apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing, kind of going way back to what you were talking about with early business starting and kind of having those freakouts, was, I don't know about you, but for me, it was like failure. Like, and that's also something within mental health range is failure. And also kind of what we were just talking about, your own task is like, you're going to fail a lot and you need to learn to be okay with that. And the faster you learn to be okay with not doing it right, the faster you'll be able to build. And I knew that and I recited that to myself, but I was never able to actually feel it. I feel like I'm kind of finally to that point, but you need to realize that you're gonna stink. You're not gonna be good at stuff. Like you're bad. And
especially
it's
sales.
Yeah, and it's gonna hurt and it's gonna be like, what did I do wrong? And oh my goodness, that was so important. Why didn't I get that person? But it's like, it's not important. You're going to get another person and you're going to learn from that experience and you're going to get better with every time you do it. And understand that, again, your task within sales is to do everything you can to help them see how you could help them because you really want to help them. And that their task is to decide if that value that you placed on yourself is within their value realm. And if it isn't, that's not up to you. So you can look at all these tricks and tips and all these different strategies, but when it comes down to it, it's value, being able to express your value the best you can, and people judging that value and feeling that it's valuable enough to them. So yeah, it's an interesting journey, especially with sales. You're right. Value.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because I feel like, what you were just saying, like the last 60 seconds or so was such like a good summary of how like an almost like initial sales interaction or like a, typical eval should go. Right. And I like one of the biggest things that I would say that I wish I knew at the beginning, was to just shut up. Like, don't talk so much, like you were saying, like express your value, but like, you don't have to talk for like 5 minutes straight to a person to try to like, I hate when people say like, how do I convince a patient to work with me? Or like, how do I persuade them? How do I get them? And, like you don't, like you put yourself out there, you ask questions, you relate to the person, build a relationship, as every single like marketing book will tell you, and sales book. And you just have to like put something on the table and say like, hey, look, person, based on everything you've said, here's my recommendation, and shut up. Like let the other person talk. That was like, oh my gosh. And sometimes I still do it. And
I still do it.
Like, have you ever had, I'll like be on like a sales call or whatever, and I'm like out of body experience watching myself just like shut up. Just like a complete dumpster fire. And I'm like, oh my God. But it's like, that's going to happen no matter how long you've been in business.
Right.
But yeah, like that's the like number one piece of advice that I wish I could go back and give myself is just like, keep it simple, and ask questions. Cause like, it's not about you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing that's overlooked, especially in the marketing and sales, tips that are surrounding us, is the failure to recognize and make sure that your product is actually as good as you think it is. I forget what book it is. I think it's called Influence. But there's a story about, two kids on the block that have lemonade stands, and one kid has a ton of customers, and then the other kid is learning all these ways to get customers through marketing strategies. And yes, he gets customers, but they're not consistent. And he finally kind of takes a look and he figures it out, and he goes over and he tries to figure it out. And he has one of his lemonades. He's like, oh my goodness, that's the best lemonade I'd ever had. And it's like, okay, well, that's why people keep going there. And that's why people are buying from him, is because it's amazing. It's because the service and the care and all that stuff is amazing, not because of the tricks and things that you do to get them in the door. It should be because they feel a real sense of care, and that they really are on track and value what you're providing to a level that you value yourself.
And I think, like, I guess maybe kind of going off of this, it like reminds me too of like myself and lots of other people when they first start a practice, like the fear of like being good enough, like you were just saying, like you have to be like confident in your offer. And something that like I really tried to focus on, and kind of what you were saying before about like you can only be responsible for yourself, is like even if like the clinical diagnosis is not something that you've been treating like for a zillion years, and then maybe it's something that's totally new to you, you can still be confident in your offer to help somebody, because like that will never change, might even just only get better, in the way that you interact with your patients and like go about guiding them. But, like you can have the clinical confidence as well. That's good. But when you're first getting started, or, something crazy comes up, you can still have the confidence in that part. Like, like I'm very strong at building a relationship with someone and rapport, and also research, and talking to other clinicians to help this patient, and that's okay.
Yeah, and it's another thing to boost that confidence is because you've been surrounded by people for so long that are within this world, you forget that other people don't understand it. And so you almost assume that the people that you're talking about have all the same knowledge as you, and maybe or at least some of your friends within the workout world. But some of my clients don't know what a quad is. They don't know things, and you have to educate them. And so if you can give them just that base, just a little bit more, you're definitely going to be able to help them. And so, it's important to remember that. And you definitely have the ability to help people no matter where you are.
Yeah. So be confident in that. I think, it's just like, it's so interesting to like look back and see, like, if I had only just chilled out for 1 second, like maybe it wouldn't have been so stressful. But of course, like all those experiences like helped lead us to where we are right now.
Right.
And I know before we run out of time here, there's no pivot to this. But Bill, being a newish dad, being a parent, as a business owner, let's talk about that.
Yeah. And I again, this is one of those new things I alluded to, but I don't know if I actually told you. We're expecting another child. So,
congratulations.
thank you. Yeah. So going to be a dad again, dad to 2, which is going to be crazy. Can't even imagine. It's challenging because you have to ask your partner to do certain things and kind of have your back in that sense when it comes to making sure that home is taken care of while you do things that you need to do for your business, whether it's going to workshops or, treating late, or, just kind of taking time that's maybe not that, consistent 9 to 5 type work. You have to be on the same page with your partner about it. And then, honestly, to be honest, I think my business is way easier than parenting. So it's just like, and I think a lot of the lessons that I learned for business and with parenting, like cross mold. So it's amazing. But yeah, it's challenging. You have different time responsibilities than someone who doesn't have children. You have different things tugging at you than people who don't have children. You have less sleep likely than people that don't, or possibly more stress with, now I have a toddler who's, throwing tantrums. And so being able to kind of learn to just zen and meditate while they have a tantrum is crucial. But yeah, it comes at a cost of time and structuring your schedule and making sure that you are as efficient as you can within the time that you do have in order to be able to go home and enjoy your family and be present with your family versus going home and still thinking about the business and not being present. That's only going to create problems with time.
Yeah, for sure. Like, so I feel like it kind of even just like falls under the whole topic of like life balance. And I know that's something that like you and I talked about like quite a bit, and I definitely do not claim to be perfect at it, which I just feel like it's so hard too when like you really love what you do
Yeah.
and you like it and you
Yeah.
enjoy it, and
Yeah.
then like you also like and enjoy your family. So
Right.
what, I guess, like, what tips or advice, like, do you have any like sneaky tactics to help with life
Yeah, yeah,
balance?
definitely. Like there are times where I'll take the afternoon and go just do something by myself. And that's, you have to get over that feeling that we talked about not doing stuff for work or that you should be working or whatever. But, you always hear that self-time and taking a break is taking care of yourself and actually helping progress the business, which it is, because it makes you, more effective when you are working. So taking time and doing the things that you care about, scheduling it in so that you go and do it, and you can have a little bit of alone time. That's kind of sneaky because you don't get it all. And if you had a real job, like you wouldn't get that. So it's like,
Yeah.
that's one of the perks. And that's one of the things that at the beginning you were saying, like you can make your own schedule and you can kind of do what you want to do. And that's the beauty of it, is you do make your own schedule. You can schedule a afternoon where you can go. Like I like to go and just go frisbee golf by myself, and I stink. I'm really bad at it, so I'm not slowing anyone down. So it's awesome. So I'm just kind of in nature, throwing a disc and enjoying kind of walking in the woods by myself. And then usually when I come out of it, I feel so much better and I'm ready to go home and be a dad and ready for the next day. Walking and nature and all that stuff help you ease your mind, and it can help you think through things, and you're never going to turn your brain off completely. So sometimes scheduling time off is also going to allow you that calm to think of the things that you need to think of, meaning it just kind of comes to you. Another tip, I would just say, I was working out in the morning. Now I would just say, just get your sleep. It's so important. Figure out when you're going to work out another time during the day. Some people feel like they need to kind of get up and work out. Yeah, that's definitely possibly the case, but then make sure you go to bed early. So yeah, just, you need the sleep. You got to do it. And then your body, your body's a temple. So it's like, if you don't take care of what you eat, how you sleep, how you rest and recover, your hydration, it's going to impact you because at a greater level, because of how much stress is on you, whether it is from a family parenting side or from a business side. It's going to show up because there's a lot of stress. And that's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah. And it's almost like, of course, everybody says, like, take care of yourself, blah, 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 but if you think about it in a way of, like, my body is going to be able to, like, better handle the stress of the business because I took care of myself and, like, did all these, like, things that everybody says. I like the TikTok meme that's like, oh, I like go for a stupid walk for my stupid mental health.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if you build up your capacity to handle all of that, I mean, just like building up muscular capacity for whatever.
I think with that, it's also, it kind of makes me remember like another big thing for parenting and for business.
Yeah.
If you aren't meditating, it helps you. It's not the art of shutting your brain off. It's the art of learning how to come back into yourself when everything around you is chaos. So your brain is kind of the chaos during meditation, because you're just sitting there, and then you have to kind of come into yourself, and that helps you when your toddler's having a tantrum, when you're late to drop off, when you have someone not, no show, or something goes wrong in the business. It allows you to be able to kind of work that muscle that is helping you stay calm in the situation. So that's I guess another big tip I would say. If there's parents and business owners that aren't meditating, I would highly recommend working that in.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like we covered so much today, and like all the tips on all the things that you could possibly run into owning a business. And thank you so much. Like I think this is a really good place to kind of wrap up, because there's a lot to digest, in this episode and everything. And I really, like, Bill and I have had a really great relationship at both growing our businesses and everything. And it's super cool to see all the things that you're doing. So I just want to say thank you so much for for being here and for offering all of your advice. It's been really helpful.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure, and hopefully everybody can grow from it.
Yeah. And if anybody is interested in learning more about what you do, where can they find you?
They are welcome to reach out to me on Facebook, just Bill Renkas, or Instagram. I am B Renkas DPT. RENKAS, and then Movement First HW is my business. I don't look at LinkedIn.
Me either.
Yeah, those are the big ones. You're welcome to message me if you'd like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, great. Thank you so much again. And thank you to everybody who was here, who was able to make it to the live recording. If you're watching on the replay here, YouTube, the podcast, all the places, thank you so much. And we hope this was helpful, and we will see you on the next one.
Thanks.